welcome to the Regeneration and Public Protection Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday, the 25th of May, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. Right, moving across to agenda. Agenda item 1, any apologies for absence?
I've not received any, Chair.
Malcolm?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm here for the start of the meeting, but I may have to give apologies towards the end of the meeting as I have to leave for the Youth Mayor inauguration.
No problem, thank you. Scott?
Yeah, same thing as the Mayor. I may have to leave for the Youth Mayor inauguration, and I have just received apologies from Kevin. He's got a family matter.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Right, moving on. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. No? Okay. Move on to agenda item 3, draft committee work programme 2021-2022 to consider the attached report. So I met with officers regarding this a couple of weeks ago. We asked for feedback. And then we discussed this within the meeting. What we decided was that we would pick one item per regen meeting, one report, and then we would work off the Cabinet's forward work plan going forward to bring in 2, possibly 3 reports going forward. The only thing I found going through we've all had the copy of the Cabinet forward work plan last week, but unfortunately the dates for the meeting and of the Cabinet meeting are going to be before our next scrutiny. Ideally we would like these reports prior to our meeting so we can discuss and scrutiny. I've discussed this with Maria and I discussed it with the leader, and I think that's what we're going to work towards. I don't know if any of the officers would like to come in and comment on that. Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I totally agree with you because this is the starting point of doing things slightly differently. That obviously things are sync to start, but I'm sure there's something we can rectify going forward based on the outcome of this meeting and subsequent meetings.
Yeah, great. Does anybody have any questions? No? Has everybody got a copy of the forward work plan at hand? Is there anything that you would like to bring up in the next meeting? I was thinking about the possibly the Cavartha Foundation and the St Tidville Shopping Centre. Anybody have any other thoughts?
No, happy to be guided by you, Chair.
Come on, you might be guided on the wrong path, Malcolm. Gareth, do you want to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. In the Cabinet meeting that was held last Wednesday, the 19th of May, there was a confidential paper there that related to the regeneration of the Hoover strategic regeneration area and the Cleveland site. Obviously, members of the committee are currently unable to see that because it's a confidential paper, but I'm just wondering if it can be brought to the committee so we can, obviously in a confidential format, so we can discuss what was involved in our paper.
I'm happy with that. Alan?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Lewis. Obviously, it was confidential paper based on a commercial in confidence restriction to the report, but happy to talk committee through that, obviously in an exempt report.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's including the Cleveland site as well, Alan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's both the Cleveland site and the Hoover's regeneration area, without going into any further detail, Councillor Lewis.
Okay. That'd be great. Thanks.
Should we go for those two? Would we like another one? No.
I think those two would be a good start, Chair.
Yeah. Is that okay, Alan? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Probably the Cleveland site and the Hoover's regeneration area would actually be long agenda items, Chair. So you might want to put 3 on for the full session.
Okay. There's going to be, the police is going to be on there as well, so that make it 3, I think. Should we
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So we also discussed in the meeting the other week that we might try something different. Well, sorry, Malcolm, go on.
Yeah, sorry, Lee, thanks. Yeah, you mentioned that the police, are we going to invite the police in front of the committee? And if we do, are they likely to attend?
Sorry, I thought they would be coming. Yeah, I've been discussing with Paul Lewis around some matters around antisocial behaviour and you know, the problems with 101. So I'll chase this up with him and make sure we invite them and come along, because the amount of people I'm having contacting 101 and then hanging up because the call wait time is in excess of 30 minutes plus. So maybe we need to be challenging them on what the call drop-offs and how many calls they're having in, because it's definitely not working. You know, we're not in the 1980s now. Surely there's got to be a better way to report than just over the phone.
It'd be useful if someone from the police did attend, but I think in the past, have they been reluctant to do so?
Alan, do you want to come in here before I call John in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As a statutory partner, I'm sure that that the police would want to cooperate on this, and I think that's an excellent agenda item, actually, rather than having some sort of holistic discussion about antisocial behaviour. The performance of 101, I think, is something which is really targeted, and the committee can get their teeth into.
Right.
Great. Okay. John?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's just on that issue, as Alan said, you know, that 101 is just a waste of space. Because 3 times last week, I had residents ringing me. They'd been on the phone for at least an hour, couldn't get through. So the next protocol then is the elected members. You know, so how do we get through the 101? You know, we can't solve their issues, really. It's the police that got to solve this themselves. I hope they do take up the offer and come to the meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, thanks.
Hillary? No worries. Hillary?
Yeah, I just wanted to second or third now what everyone else is saying. I had need to call 101 with regard to antisocial behaviour to do with the COVID testing centre, where some youths were hassling people as they came out. I couldn't get through. I rang and rang and rang, and in the end I resorted to messaging Geraint, who sorted it out for me, which was great. I think he had a hotline to the police, but can comment himself. But it was intimidating behaviour that was happening. Maybe I should have rang 999, I don't know. But then we hear all sorts of stats about inappropriate calls to 999, which I think we're all mindful of. But it's interesting that Councillor Thomas raises that the next port of call is to councillors, because that was exactly what I did. But I would be really interested in the performance stats on responses and how long it takes with the 101.
Yeah, because at the moment I'm having, I think it's 3 properties with high levels of antisocial behaviour. One that's been going on since January 2018, and they're down for eviction, but then COVID came in. But the police are running reports off and saying that nobody's contacted the police since since Boxing Day last year. And then I'm forwarding my emails to the local authority, the police, Smith Valley Zones, and I'm into the 40s and 50s of antisocial behaviour. So I'm getting them because they can contact me far easily than they can contact the police. So it is a massive problem, and their online reporting as well is just a waste of space. If the antisocial behaviour is happening there and then, and you try to report it, it'll say ring 101 and 999. Surely that, you know, we should be able to download an app or contact the police in some other way than just over a telephone. So okay. Just moving on. Is anybody got any other questions on the police? No. Just moving on slightly. We discussed. Sorry, I'll move on. I'll discuss what I was just about to say in the next agenda item. So, is there any further questions or comments from anyone regarding item agenda number 3? Nope. Oh, Maria.
Thanks, Chair. It was just an observation, really. One of the items which has been listed on the work programme is the end of European funding and the impact that would have across the county borough. My query as an outsider looking in is receiving a one-off report sufficient to meet the committee's needs to receive reassurance that there's plans in place, and also to anticipate any replacement funding which is coming in? Just basically an administrative query for me to make sure I don't have to slot an item in later in the work programme.
Yeah. Alan?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Maria, because I think there's 3 bite-sized chunks that we need to look at this in. I think during this transition period, the initial report needs to consider the implications of the withdrawal of European funding, because it has 2 separate components. There's the revenue component, which is ESF, which supports people, employment and training development. And there's the RDF, which is the capital element. So I think to be able to look at the issues first, then look at the implications, and then possibly look at the successor funds, because obviously the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is the commitment of the UK government to replace the structural funds, that's not determined at the moment. And currently we have some short-term interim arrangements which we're all trying to bid into for a 1-year period. So at least 3, I'd suggest, Chair.
Okay. So you can add that. You suggest that, Alex. You just suggest adding that on to July's meeting as well.
I'd spread it out over the next financial year, if possible,
Okay.
Chair.
Yeah, no worries. That's fine. I was just concerned that we weren't going to. Obviously, the CRF fund and then the levelling up fund is on our doorstep now. I just conscious of next meeting then will be September, but yeah, I'm happy, you know, if you think that's best. Yeah, fine. Is that anything else, Maria?
No, that's me done.
All right.
Didn't want the committee to miss the opportunity to properly consider the different facets, Chair.
Okay, bro. Thank you. Moving on, agenda item 4, discussion around housing and homelessness to consider this matter. When we had a meeting, that's what I was going to discuss just now. When we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I suggested maybe trying to do something a little bit different. Whereas we organised maybe a meeting away from a workshop away from Scrutiny for all of us, including officers and other beneficiaries as well, maybe RSLs, to do some co-production around the issues and to discuss this and come up with some key outcomes, and then bring a report back later in the year to scrutiny, so we can scrutinise that. I don't know how you feel about that. Is there any questions regarding what I've just talked about? No. Did I get that right, Alan? What we discussed?
Yeah, I think you pretty much got the essence of it, because I think the way the discussion went is the structure of scrutiny at the moment. You just receive a two-dimensional report about an issue. So perhaps the opportunity is to discuss the current issues in the round without any restrictions within the sort of report, and then to perhaps discuss what sort of questions come out of the discussion, and then have a more formal scrutiny about, okay, how do we solve the problems? Because obviously, as well as scrutinising, I think there's a role of this committee in actually trying to drill into what the solutions are, and hold not just one organisation, but all the relevant organisations to account about delivering the solutions. So I think it was a very good discussion. I know Councillor Rogers and Councillor Thomas were involved in that, and it was perhaps a more 360-degree view of what we wanted to do before we drilled into the issues, the solutions, and the responsibility for delivering those solutions. So yes, I think you captured it.
Okay, great. Has anybody got any questions? I don't know, Suzanne, do you want to give an overview maybe of where we are with housing and homelessness at the moment? Sorry to put you on the spot. What the current challenges are?
Yeah, no problem. Myself and Susie are on, so if I just give an overview, and then obviously Susie can add anything at the end then, if that's okay.
Great.
Okay. Homelessness service continues to be busy, as you're probably all aware. As of last week, we had a total of 143 people across all of our temporary accommodation and supported accommodation, with 84 of those being placed in B&Bs in and outside of Merthyr. We've not had any communication from Welsh Government since the recent election in regards to the priority need legislative changes made last March, and obviously whether they will be made permanent. But as the Minister for Housing has not changed, we're working on the basis that we will continue to have a statutory duty to provide temporary accommodation for everyone that presents as homeless for the foreseeable future. All our B&Bs have been paid in full up to the 30th September, with the additional cost being funded via the Welsh Government Hardship Fund, and we're continuing to secure the rooms 6 months in advance on a rolling monthly basis. All the B&B accommodation have support providers on site, and we have professional security companies employed at the Tregenna and Castle Hotel at the moment due to the high numbers that we have staying there. All the B&Bs have indicated that they will continue to allow us to use their premises for the foreseeable future, but we will have to vacate the 6 rooms that we're holding at Penland Guest House shortly, due to Merthyr Valley's Homes purchasing the building and reconfiguring the property for use as our young person 6-bed hostel. So we're yet to identify a suitable location and premise for the other 4-bed provision, but are working closely with Merthyr Valley's Homes on this at the moment. We're also conscious that as the COVID restrictions lift further, places like the Castle Hotel may no longer wish to accommodate some of our service users, as the hotel has already opened the restaurant there, and obviously this may impact on that aspect of their business, and also together with our own local authority tourism plans for the town centre area. We're in the process of mapping the needs of those currently in the Castle Hotel provision, with what support and accommodation needs they will require, and we will be prioritising move-on accommodation for these individuals. In terms of our exit strategy, it does remain work in progress, given the high volume of affordable properties required to be able to move everyone on into permanent accommodation. So we fully allocated the additional social housing grant funding that we've received for 21-22 to develop more accommodation with our RSL partners. But some of these developments are obviously going to be longer term solutions rather than the immediate fixes. So in the shorter term, we're anticipating having 9 units of accommodation available in the late summer autumn time. 2 of these will be in Trevethick Street, working with a private landlord, converting an existing 2-bed terrace property into 2 1-bed flats. So hopefully that will be ready in October. Work has already commenced with Merthyr Valleys Homes to site 2 modular homes at Glazier Road, in addition to the 2 that are already there. We'd also then looking hopefully to have a further 5 modular homes at Honeysuckle Close, subject to planning approval. There have been delays with the planning process due to recommendations that plans be amended to reduce the number of units. And also ecology reports have been required due to there being some contamination on the land on the site. So we're still waiting a decision on that. We've also acquired £78,000 of VODA capital funding to bring 2 additional properties into use as dispersed refuge accommodation for larger families or single males or anybody who can't access the traditional refuge accommodation. We're working with both MTHA and Merthyr Valleys Homes to identify 2 suitable properties which will be refurbished to make them suitable for victims of domestic abuse. We're also in discussion with MTHA at the moment in identifying a suitable property or land that can be developed to set up a long-term supported accommodation provision for up to 5 people for individuals with multiple complex needs. That would be similar to our young person's housing first model, where the accommodation would be staffed 24/7 and there'd be no age limit or time limit for move on. In addition to those, we're also working with private landlord Duncan Evans from D2 Propco to acquire an additional HMO to utilise as temporary accommodation, so that hopefully we'll start to be less reliant on the B&Bs. We had identified a property recently in the Pendarren area, but given that the housing market is so strong at the moment, that by the time we consulted with the ward members, it was literally sold within 48 hours. So we missed out on that one. So we're meeting with Duncan again tomorrow to have another look at what's currently available on the market. But I think going forward, we will need to move really quickly on any suitable properties that are identified. So whilst we will keep ward members up to date, we won't necessarily wait any longer than perhaps, I don't know, 24 hours for a response before instructing Duncan to make an offer on the property. Otherwise, we just basically go around a cycle of missing out on them. We're also very hopeful in obtaining £750,000 ICF funding for a complete refurbishment of the Neighbourhood Learning Centre buildings up in the Gurness to provide 24/7 supported accommodation for young people up to the age of 24 and for those leaving care. For those who may not be aware, as part of the offer of accommodation, there will be a training opportunity attached to the provision, so that young people staying there will be expected to engage in some kind of training programme offered through Debbie Newton's training and employability team. So all the Gurness ward members are supportive of the project, as is Councillor Chris Davis. We began a public consultation 2 weeks ago via Facebook, because obviously due to the COVID restrictions, we can't have face-to-face meetings like we would otherwise. Some residents are in favour of the project, but there are a small number who have had concerns around the type of people who may be placed there, assuming that the project will result in an increased ASB in the area. Despite us giving some reassurances that it's not going to be like a housing first project and that the service users placed there will have very low support needs, there does appear to be I suppose a lack of trust on their side, and I think the fact that we've undertaken a consultation process and that there will be 24/7 support there has made some believe that it's going to be something a lot more significant going on there than what it is. And I think in addition to that, because there is some work going on at one of the blocks there, which is nothing to do with the project itself, I think some feel that the it is a done and dusted thing, and that the consultation is just a tick box exercise. So in light of the residents' concerns, we have sent out a second letter to residents offering them a meeting via Teams, so that we can undertake a sort of Q&A session to try and alleviate their fears and hopefully to get them on board. And I think that probably sums it up. I don't know if you want to add anything, Sews?
Yeah, thanks, Suze. I suppose in terms of, you've covered really well all of the work streams that we've got ongoing to try and meet the need. So there's two kind of things going on in the main from behind the scenes in housing, as well as all of the work. We're going through an internal service review and potential restructure, because we have lacked the capacity, the strategic capacity to develop and grow our strategic housing function previously. So there's two work streams to that. One is building resilience within the operational services and making sure we can do what we need for our public when they need it. And the other side then is to enhance our capabilities to grow our portfolio of accommodation types and schemes to meet the local need. So that's ongoing at the moment, and Susan and I are in an interim structure, so I'll be leading on the development side and the strategic housing function going forward. Alongside that, we're reinvigorating our strategic housing partnership, so we're bringing all our RSLs, our departments across the authority, and our portfolio members in to discuss the wider housing need and how we tackle some of the issues together. And Suze has already touched upon the fact that we've got about 140 plus people across our temporary accommodation. Over 80 of those are in B&Bs now, and will be for the foreseeable, should the legislation from Welsh Government not change, and the sensitivities around the potential budgetary impact that's going to have going forward. So our immediate priority now really is profiling all of those 80 plus people. The remaining people will be in supported accommodation, where the accommodation and support is more secure and well-rounded to meet their needs. The 80 plus in B&B, we have a mixture of people with complex needs, lower level needs, etc. So once we have profiled all of those 80 individuals, we then need to scope out what development we need for those people as soon as possible, to enable us to then plan and map what projects we need, what supported accommodations we need, what independent single persons accommodation, etc. Just to help us sort of work up those solutions going forward. Obviously, as part of the role as well, we're looking to work more closely with the state, with planning, with strategic regen, to maximise the external funding that we've got access to, so we're not solely reliant on the social housing grant, which has been the only game in town really in terms of developments from an affordable housing perspective so far. So we're trying to think innovatively with with a significant amount of pressure at the moment, but we're very much along for the journey, and we're hopeful that some of the schemes, including the Neighbourhood Learning Centre, the increased support for those fleeing domestic violence, our increased single persons accommodation through social housing grant, increased use of HMOs, are helping us along, but they're very much part of the picture, forming our exit strategy at the moment.
Thank you both, excellent feedback. Is there any questions? Alan, do you want to come in before questions?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just an observation, really. As a scrutiny committee, I mean, that's just mind-blowing. The amount of information about a very complex issue that came out during the verbal presentation then by Susie and Suzanne. It's it's quite heavy. So I suppose for me, although it's a very crowded agenda, I mean, that only skims the surface, doesn't it? Because there's the involvement in prevention agenda to stop these youngsters and these individuals get into the position of homelessness. There's the role of health in its various forms. There's the role of social services. What's the PSB, the Public Sector Service Board, doing about this? There's so many questions and so much scrutiny just in that one issue, which makes it important that we actually drill down into the information we want and who we're holding to account. Because so many times you get a department, is housing in this case, is holding the fulcrum of so many society issues, and there's so many different organisations responsible for solving those that don't get held to account. So going back on your previous comments, Chair, the way that we drill down into actually identifying the questions we want answered is easier then to bring all the relevant organisations into your scrutiny committee to be held to account to what they're doing to solve these problems.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, I'm only involved in the Neighbourhood Learning Centre project, and you know that's been an ongoing for the last 2 weeks, and it's taken up quite a bit of my time. So you know, I can only appreciate the level of work that's currently being undertaken by all officers. Geraint, I think you were next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to agree with what Alan just said there, really. You know, it's everybody's responsibility. It's a statutory duty that's put on the local authority. And I think it's the biggest challenge that we're facing at this moment in time. And it's a growing problem, and it's a problem that's not going away either. And, you know, as we come out of COVID and with the businesses that may want to open up to their traditional trade, you know, it's going to affect us, you know, even harder as a local authority, and the work that our team will have to do to try and house these individuals is going to be very, very tough. So, you know, in that meeting we had, Lee, you know, I think it, like Alan said, we've got to look at this 360 degrees in the round, bring all our partners in together, because it's a massive issue and it's a societal issue that, you know, we are facing in the valleys areas, really. So I think, yeah, you know, I think that big piece of work can't come soon enough. And I'd support Tony and the team as already done on the housing issues. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, yeah, thanks, Geraint. We've been discussing homelessness and housing, but you know, there's so many people within in the ward where I represent that can't get other properties at the moment. This is frightening, and they've been on that waiting list for overcrowding for a long time. Tony, do you want to come in there?
Just to say that the confidence, I'm very confident of this portfolio. It's a very difficult part, housing, as Geraint and Alan, and you know, quite different. But I think we've got the expertise, and the dealings I've had the last 2 or 3 months, that's the 2 Suzannes, are outstanding. But it's what I would like to see as well is an areas within the county borough where are designated, not to put people in a square, whatever, but somewhere where houses are available in whole parts of the borough where people are homeless can go. And because the difficulty is finding these properties, I know, but if we could get some agreement, and Geraint said it quite right, it encompasses everything. It's not just housing, it's everything. This is the way of life. And that's what we must be looking at. I'm confident we can do it. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but we've got the right people in office and doing it, and I'm confident about that. But this is what we should be doing. It's a rounded subject. It's all together, it is. But when we get these areas, I'd like to know an area, because all of a sudden you're looking and looking. But I'd like to know an area which where people can be rehomed or rehoused for a period during difficult times. And that's what I will be pushing for, quite honestly, because I think the rest will follow on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Tony. Gareth?
Thanks, Chair. And I'd like to thank Suzanne and Susie for the update. It was really comprehensive, and as Alan touched on, it is a complex matter. I'd like to touch on the partnership we have with D2. And sort of ask some questions regarding the properties that have been identified for HMO to be converted into HMOs. I think Susie did touch on it. How are you progressing? Because I do take your point that the meetings that we have that I've had maybe scuppered a property in Troydrew, for example. So, and given the buoyancy of the market, we do have to move quick. So I'd appreciate your further comments on that, please.
Yeah, so I think in the last probably 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, we've identified at least 12 properties. The approach that we took initially, when the market was a lot slower, was we would sit down and we basically will sit with G2, have a look on Rightmove at properties, and we know the area better, so we'll have an idea of locations in terms of accessibility for services, bus routes, for example. Not necessarily all need to be in town centre, as long as they're near sort of transport links. We sit down, we identify a number of properties, and then the procedure was we'd send out to all the relevant ward members. We give about a week's turnaround. If there are no issues or objections for whatever reason, then we go ahead. I think what we have gradually moved to is given a day or 2 days to say, look, ultimately, this is what we're doing. This property has been identified. There shouldn't be any reason why we can't go ahead, because we're not looking to put extremely complex people in. They are managed. There is CCTV throughout. There are always considerations of matching individuals when you look at shared accommodations, for example, but that work will be done behind the scenes within our housing solutions teams. So I think the ask from us going forward, and we are planning to do a full council report in the next couple of months, just to keep everybody up to date on the updated situation around the housing market, is that we will look at identifying any suitable properties. We'll inform ward members as we identify the properties during that meeting, and if we feel is suitable, we'll go ahead and put offers in subject to planning. So D2 will start that work immediately. Even that, because of the way we plan it, sometimes it does take the time. There was an offer put on one, but they were able to sell without having to wait for planning permission, and they went with the other buyer. So the buoyancy of the market, I think, if members are in agreement, we just need to proceed and just keep members updated on what's happening with the property, when it's looking to be converted, what's happening with the planning committee. So it's more of a joint working rather than waiting for a response before being able to proceed. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to get our third off the ground, really.
Yeah, I totally agree, Suzanne. The last time I can remember the housing market being this strong in Merthyr was probably mid-noughties, about 15, 16 years ago. And I really do think that it could hamper your search alongside D2 in finding appropriate accommodation. So I think you really do need to stress to members how quickly you need to move. Because, you know, as you know, we had a meeting with the Plymouth ward members. There was a property in Troydrew identified. And I think that the time it took, it was arranged very quickly, but even so, the time it took to arrange the meeting led to the property going elsewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think similarly, with looking at the additional models of supported accommodation that Suzanne started discussing earlier, we are going to be in the same position. So we need specific accommodation. There is more sensitivity around that because we will have complex individuals. However, you know, we need quick turnarounds on all of the work that we're doing. And I think, to be honest, we've had really positive engagement with all members so far. And any initial concerns or queries and sometimes misconceptions because of the different levels of accommodations that we commission. We hope to have sort of allayed any of those concerns, so we're confident that we can sort of go forward, but it is just more of an updating and us going ahead going forward just to get projects running off the ground.
Thanks.
Alan?
Yeah, just to clarify as well, most of the queries all the queries that came in about applications through the planning system around houses in multiple occupation, obviously it got nothing to do with us from a housing perspective. It's private landlords wanting to convert properties for private rental. So sometimes there's a lot of confusion as well. So just to clarify that.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. Just one question. We're looking at houses going on the market. What about a survey of currently unoccupied properties that are not on the market? There's the old bed sit on Brecon Road and down in Troederew, the old Flamai building as well. That might be occupied now, but going off last year, it wasn't occupied. Are we doing checks on these properties to see if they may be available?
Yeah, we hold the register through environmental health, which is a different statutory duty about long-term and unoccupied properties. That might be something you want to look at separately, Chair, because that's a whole different sort of professional and legal domain in its own right. But we've got a very good track record in bringing those properties back into use. But some of the issues associated with them being long-term void are quite complex and legal.
Okay, no worries. I just thought there might be some funding available to bring them, purchase them and bring them back into use as well, and for a HMO. Is there any other questions? Any comments? No? I'd just like to reiterate what everybody said and thank you for the in-depth feedback. It's putting you on the spot. We've got some challenging times ahead, I think. But I think if we can get this workshop together, I think you can help us all and hopefully you guys as well. Okay, so moving on, agenda item 5, scrutiny referrals, feedback and follow-up actions. Maria, do we have anything?
No referrals of which I'm aware, Chair.
Okay.
And the follow-up actions, we've got 2 outstanding. And we're currently chasing those. It's actually an external barrier to us getting that info, but it is progressing now, having had a catch-up with the officers concerned.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item agenda 6, reflection and evaluation of the meeting. Is everybody happy how we went today? And are we going to move forward? Yeah. Alan, I came up with a suggestion earlier. I don't know how you feel about this. About maybe having like a mid-term like coffee morning between like scrutiny members and maybe officers to just have a chat about issues and maybe how it's going. Just an informal chat rather than, only an hour, just to see how things are going and see if the things we can support.
I think that's an excellent idea because the same as the session that we had some weeks ago, Chair, just to sort of discuss the scrutiny forward plan. I think that was really valuable to have that unstructured discussion on in an informal basis. Allows us, to share information very simply and just have a chat about what we collectively think the issues are, both affecting us as professionals and obviously yourself as elected members, and especially as you roll scrutinising ourselves in the process. So I think that's an excellent idea, and hopefully we can, as the restrictions hopefully loosen, then it'd be good to have that conversation face to face.
Yeah, I agree. With my work with the trust, and then obviously speaking with officers regarding applications and regen around there, away from the local authority, I find it invaluable. And that meeting we had the other week, I think moving forward, I think it would really help. Does everybody agree? Happy with that? It won't be a recorded meeting, but just drop in and when you can make it. I'll speak to Maria and discuss some dates with officers and send them out then. So moving on, receive an update from a chair. I don't have anything else. And item agenda 6, any other business deemed urgent by the chair? I don't have any. So I'd like to formally bring the meeting to a close. And everybody enjoy their Whitsun holiday. Hopefully you'll do